The grandchildren of Korean War veterans from 19 countries were recently here in the country to partake in an annual program that seeks to keep alive the friendship forged on the front lines of the battlefield in the fight for freedom on the peninsula. On Issues and Insiders today, we speak with a few of them. Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Issues and Insiders. It's Thursday, July 25th here in South Korea. I'm Min Sunhee. Since the year 2009, Seoul's Veterans Affairs Ministry has been hosting an annual gathering that brings together the descendants of Korean war heroes who fought for freedom here on the Korean peninsula. That being said, today I have the pleasure of speaking with three descendants who partook in the event this year. I have Eugene Rhee in the studio. Eugene, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Nice to meet you too.
I also have Rachel Olivia Cote live on the line over in Canada. Rachel, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here.
Also joining us virtually is Kim Jeongwoon in France. Jeongwoon, welcome.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Right, Eugene, we'll start here. Do tell us about your grandfather's participation in the Korean War, Eugene.
Well, my grandfather participated in the Korean War when he was 16. He was actually born in 1935 and he joined the military. According to the Korean government records, he joined the military in 1952, which makes him at the age of 16. According to my grandmother, he actually lied about his age. He lied that his age was actually 18 and he joined the military, and he retired from the military in 1956. He unfortunately passed away at a tragic motorcycle incident when he was in his mid-30s. And because we think he was suffering from PTSD, he didn't really tell us any stories about the war, so those stuff are mostly forgotten, unfortunately.
Right, I see. And Rachel, do walk us through your grandfather's experience of the war here on the Korean peninsula.
Yeah, so my grandfather also lied about his age, and he attempted to join the US military before joining the Canadian military. But when they found out he was under 18, they sent him back to Canada, where he then enlisted with the 2nd Battalion PPCLI for Canada. From there, he went to basic training and then was sent directly to Korea. Unlike today, Korea is not the Korea that we know. So when he got there, it was a very war-torn and very sad situation to see. One of his very first memories when he got there that he would tell us when we were younger was all of the people that he saw displaced. They were carrying all of their belongings on their back, and they were walking in the opposite direction that the soldiers were actually marching into battle, trying to escape from everything that was going on. My grandfather fought in 2 battles. He fought on Hill 532 and in what we now know today as the Battle of Kapyeong on Hill 677. The Battle of Kapyeong was very long, 3 days and 3 nights, and the PPCLI were severely outnumbered by the Chinese army. I believe it was 5,000 to about 500 PPCLI. After that battle, the Canadian army managed to hold the peak of the hill, and then he was sent to his base camp, where he enjoyed a bowl of chicken porridge, and that is actually growing up what I had for breakfast every morning. So.
Rachel, how old was your grandfather when he enlisted? You said he was underage.
Yes, he was 17 when he first tried, but then he got sent back to Canada and he was 18 when he enlisted there.
Rachel, was there a specific story that your grandfather shared with you that struck you most about the war here?
I think the most specific story that he always talked about was just seeing all of the people. Like I said, they had nowhere to go, and that he would see children carrying everything they owned on their backs, their toys and whatever they could manage. And there was nothing, there was no home, there was no shelter, and they roamed and they tried to find safety among the soldiers.
Right. Eugene, you were saying your grandfather passed away before you were born. He was in his 30s when he passed away in a tragic motor accident, as you said. So most of the stories that you know about your grandfather was shared with you by your grandmother. Was there a story that struck you? You mentioned that he didn't share much, but from what he has shared, is there a story that struck with you?
Most of the stories that my grandmother told me was about him actually before joining the military. He was fleeing from the war from Daegu, so he was a war refugee. But at some point, he wanted to actually fight the North Koreans because South Korea was being invaded. So that made him want to enlist. That was the one thing that he shared to my grandmother, which my grandmother told to me. Most of the stories actually were after the war about how he tried to join the firefighters because he was told that firefighters in Korea were treated with good meals, and it was a time where good meals were hard to come by.
Right, of course, surely. Meanwhile, Jeongwoon, what appears to be the general perception of the Korean War among the young today?
The general perception of the Korean War among young people today is very mixed, I can say. While some have a strong understanding and appreciation of the war's significance due to family connections or education, many view it as a distant historical event, often overshadowed by more recent conflicts or global issues. So the Korean War is sometimes referred to as the war that happened long time ago. So especially outside of Korea, people start to forget. And this sentiment can also be found among younger generations. However, initiatives like educational programs, documentaries, and commemorative events, and also like this UN camp we participated, are helping to raise awareness. For instance, cultural projects, or we can have some visits to the museum about the wars, are increasingly incorporating the history of the Korean War, which is very essential in for fostering a deeper appreciation of the youth for the sacrifices made by those who fought for peace and stability.
Right, Jeongwoon, as you mentioned, the 2024 UN Korean War Veterans Descendants Camp seeks to remind people about the war that took place on the Korean Peninsula and also to, of course, raise greater awareness of the sacrifices made by these soldiers. Could you tell us a bit about the camp that took place earlier this month?
Yes. So the 2024 UN Korean War Veterans Descendants Camp held earlier this month was very moving and educational event that I can say. The camp's primary purpose was to honor the legacy of the Korean War veterans and ensure that their contributions are remembered by future generations and younger generations. The program was diverse and very enriching, featuring educational sessions on the historical context of the Korean War. There were many interactive workshops where participants could engage in discussions and team meetings about peace and reconciliation, and cultural exchanges to build international friendship. Additionally, there were visits to significant historical sites such as the War Memorial of Korea and DMZ, which provided a tangible connection to the past. The camp also included personal storytelling sessions where veterans and their descendants also could have the memories together and their experiences that we could have from the participants, from the countries that helped Korea. So that's for fostering a deeper emotional connection to the history being discussed. So this is the purpose, and there were lots of very meaningful programs during this camp.
Right. And Rachel, keeping in mind what Jeongwoon has just said, what part of the one-week camp do you remember the most?
I think it's really hard to just pick one moment, as the entire camp in itself was such a special experience. But I think for me personally, visiting the United Nations cemetery in Busan was really special for me. My grandfather made sure to revisit Korea as often as he could. He really enjoyed seeing how far it's come since the war, and he unfortunately just passed away last September. So being able to go and place flowers at one of his friends' graves, who unfortunately was killed in action, was really emotional for me, especially with him not being here. And I also got to see the Canadian monument that's in the cemetery, which was so special, as he had a really large part in donating that and making that happen for Canada. So seeing it in person was amazing.
Right, and our condolences to you, Rachel, of course, with regard to the passing of your grandfather. Eugene, what was it like meeting up with descendants like yourself of war veterans who fought for freedom here on the Korean Peninsula?
For me, it was an experience that could solve most of my curiosity. I had some interest in the Korean War before, but meeting people all across the world, I believe it was 22 countries that partook in the Korean War, and meeting descendants of like countries that we normally do not hear of. For example, we hear a lot about American veterans, Canadian veterans, Turkish veterans, but we don't really hear about South African veterans or Dutch veterans. And for example, my roommate, my fellow team member, was a Dutch descendant of a Korean War veteran, and he shared his stories about, he had maps, he had very intricate knowledge about these stuff, and it was a very moving and touching experience for me.
Right. Jeongwoon, you've partaken in the program, I understand, for 2 years in a row. What do you believe is the importance of such gatherings?
Having participated in the camp for 2 years, actually I had a very good experience last year that was held, and I could also make very nice memories with my fellows there and with also participants. So that's why I decided to participate again this year. And I don't regret at all about this decision. It was amazing time that I could have. So yeah, I do believe lots of stuff, lots of things during this camp. Firstly, they provide a unique opportunity for descendants to connect with their heritage and their memories and their grandfathers, their veterans, and gain a deeper understanding of the sacrifices made by them. And these camps also foster a strong sense of community and solidarity among participants from diverse backgrounds, all united by a shared history. So I really do believe that by sharing these memories and remembering our history, it's gonna reinforce the importance of the peace of this world right now.
Right. Rachel, this is an impromptu question. What made you sign up for the program, for the camp this year?
So I actually also had the privilege to attend the camp last year. So I had such an amazing time last year, and if I had the opportunity to go again, I would jump at that opportunity for sure.
That being said, Rachel, what do you believe is the importance of seeking to raise greater awareness about the sacrifice and services of war veterans?
I think that one of the most important things to remember that I actually had the opportunity to learn through the MPVA Peace Camp is that freedom is not free. And all of the brave soldiers who fought in the Korean War sacrificed their futures to ensure that we would have one today. I think that it's our duty as the next generation to preserve the history and legacy of these brave soldiers' contributions, ensuring that future generations will remember and learn from these experiences as well. And being able to go to something like the Peace Camp it builds friendships, and meeting people who are also descendants of veterans is an opportunity I never thought I'd be able to have. And I think that is so amazing to keep the memory alive.
Right, of course. Eugene, this is also an impromptu question. Do you suppose your grandfather's participation in the Korean War and his sacrifice for democracy here has to a certain extent affected the shaping of your characteristics, your personality, your values for social good?
For example, when I was young, I was always told that, oh, your grandfather partook in the Korean War, but for example, we lost the medals that he received, so I couldn't take that seriously. But the fact that I heard that he sacrificed most of his youth fighting in the Korean War for the sovereignty of South Korea and democracy, I think that really made me choose, initially a military career. But for example, I was really interested in history, especially war history. I think so. My grandfather's participation in the Korean War made me more interested in the historical stuff and how wars came to happen.
Eugene, what more do you suppose can the Korean government do to honor the selfless sacrifices of our war heroes and, of course, to better promote awareness about them among people today?
That's actually what I actually thought of quite a bit. I think there's two main things that the Korean government can do. One is raising awareness of the Korean War and its veterans in Korea, and second, raising awareness of these veterans abroad. So for example, for me, I only found out that my grandfather was a veteran of the Korean War because I actually had to go out and find out and get government documents. For those who don't actually get told by their parents or their grandparents that they actually participated in, they would just forget about it and actually will never know that their forefathers never partook in the war. So, for example, I think the Korean government can encourage people to actively look into their family history and to check if their forefathers actually partook in the war. And secondly, for raising awareness in terms of people abroad. I believe that the Korean government, for example, the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think they can both collaborate in some way to make more programs like the UN Descendant Camp that we all participated in.
Eugene, was there a reason why you were going out there to look for these documents?
I think it was because initially back in high school, I made a club studying international conflicts, being the nerd I am. And I always heard that my grandfather partook in the war, but we actually had no solid evidence. So I went out into the government portal section and dug up some documents, and indeed, he actually did partook in the war.
So it's really important to make an individual effort to go out there and to get information. That being said, Jeongwoon, what do you propose to promote better awareness about our war heroes?
Actually, during this camp, for example, there was a mission, which is that we had to make a team project. So we had a team meeting several times, and all the teams that participated there made their own ideas, their own projects, and also they prepared lots of that to also explain to the participants and to the staff. And all of them are gonna practice and achieve that in their own countries. It's not gonna be over only during this camp. It's gonna be also practiced in their own countries. So I believe that all of the teams right now, they are also doing right now, and they are gonna write a report about it so that we will not forget. We'll always try to make that happen. And the ideas that I heard, that I saw during this camp, they were very fresh and they were very fantastic. And some of the ideas that I saw was very practical, and it's gonna work for sure. I can guarantee that. And from these ideas, I think we can make awareness around the world. And also, one of the participants from this camp is gonna try to make a community among the participants of this UN camp. For example, now we only know between 2024 participants, but he's gonna connect between 2023, 2022, 2021 participants, so that all of the participants are gonna connect, and we are gonna have a meeting, and we are gonna make more efforts to spread our connection, our histories, and how the peace is important in this world.
Right, that sounds great, Jeongwoon, especially keeping in mind the current climate of geopolitical uncertainty. That kind of network would prove to be very tangible proof, that is, of the need for solidarity. All right, Jeongwoon, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. And Rachel over in Canada, thank you very much for your insights. And Eugene here in the studio, thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Right. Well, on that note, we end this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.